Good morning. This is the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Wednesday, March 31st. Precipitation the past 7 days on the left. You can see that pretty dry again across the southern half of Nevada, although there was some moisture that pushed into parts of the Arizona Strip and into southern Utah, into some of the higher terrain, but scattered about, no large areas. A lot of it orographically induced. You can see the percentage of normal and the drier than normal over the past week. And the dark red indicates almost 0% of normal precipitation, encompassing a large portion of the area. The only places above normal, the higher terrain of northeastern Nevada, and hit and miss portions of central Utah, and of course above normal in what has been some of our driest areas down in southeast Utah. Good news for them, but overall, still another drier than normal week. Our snowpack, as we are now at what is normally peak snowpack, the end of March, basically 75 to 80% of normal in most areas. Slightly higher numbers scattered about across some of the higher terrain of north central Nevada. Again, no one really standing out in the Great Basin as being above normal. Even here in some of the higher terrain of Idaho, still only 70 to 80% of normal. So we'll be watching that across the Sierra front, some parts of eastern Idaho, as well as a good portion of the higher terrain of Utah as we start going into the spring and early summer months. And because of the recent dryness, our 10-hour fuels extremely dry here in the red, 3 to 4%, and this whole area in the pink, basically 5 to 6%, and this will continue to dry over the next several days. So something to keep in mind. And even our 100-hour fuels, you can see this area in the dark gold here that encompasses eastern Nevada, western Utah, single-digit values in the 100-hour fuels through here. Slightly higher amounts across northeastern Utah, although kind of interesting downslope into the Uinta Basin off the Uinta Mountains. There is a dry donut hole here of single-digit 100-hour fuels. Of course, that's where we've had some fire activity in the past week. Our long-term drought continues to be a major worry. We have exceptional drought here encompassing basically the entire third to southern half of the geographic region, and starting to also show its rear its ugly head up here in some of the higher terrain of Idaho. Severe to locally extreme drought in some of those areas just outside and east of Sun Valley, so something to keep in mind again. This will only get worse here in Idaho as we go through the spring and into the summer. Satellite imagery shows that the trough low pressure, which brought a cool shot of air across a good portion of the Great Basin, especially eastern and northern areas, very quickly moving on out, actually producing a big snowstorm for interior sections of New York and New England. But for us, we have that high pressure now building in, so we should see a rapid warm-up, especially across the western Great Basin and pushing into the eastern Great Basin over the next 24 hours. So maybe 10 to 20 degrees warmer than it has recently been. And there's the high pressure ridge for this afternoon. On the left, you can see the dryness of those darker orange colors pushing on in. Smoke dispersion, despite the high pressure, still pretty good because we're getting to the time of year where we're getting a lot of direct sunlight coming up. You can see the worst dispersion still across eastern areas with some of that colder surface air hanging in a little bit longer. So better dispersion to the west today, despite the high pressure presence. Slightly worse dispersion further to the east. You can see the light transport winds in the pink, but where the transport winds are picking up a bit across parts of southern Nevada, the Arizona Strip, and across northwestern Nevada into parts of Idaho. Excellent overall mixing heights. Thursday, zonal flow, the high pressure kind of flattens out and moves out. We really don't have a deep low pressure trough moving in just yet. There's one waiting in the wings well up into the Gulf of Alaska. Good overall dispersion. We'll have some light to moderate transport winds, but again, good overall mixing. That's mostly because of this time of year. You can see on the right-hand side the mixing heights in the yellow to orange, several thousand feet above ground level. As for transport winds, you can see them starting to pick up here out of the south at 10 to 20 miles per hour. We have the colors of orange to green Um, Lighter winds across the Uinta Basin. It's good news for some of that fire activity. It's still ongoing through there. On Friday, we'll see the development of a trough, but still well offshore. So just a dry, fairly warm southwest flow. On the right-hand side, excellent overall dispersion, and that's starting to improve across eastern areas. We'll have the best transport winds across western and northern areas. Still light transport flow across the east, but overall good vertical mixing, several thousand feet above ground level in just about all areas. No precipitation for the Great Basin over the next 3 days. This is Wednesday morning through Saturday morning. Looking for the weekend, upper level pattern looks exactly the same. Things kind of stall out a little bit. We're between high pressure over the Midwest and low pressure well off the West Coast. Broad southwest flow, though, ensures excellent overall dispersion and ventilation. We see areas in the white. And as we go into Sunday, this trough starts sharpening a little bit, and there's also some moisture being entrained from the subtropics into Southern California. So we'll see how that plays out and how this trough interacts with some of this moisture through here. But we will see increasing clouds late in the weekend into early next week. The models have been all over the place with this storm, either sometimes having as a deep, wet storm for the Great Basin and sometimes just not having it at all. So we're hoping that this will resolve itself in the next day or two. But as of now, between Monday and Tuesday, some unsettled weather, definitely cooler, definitely cloudier, some light precipitation at this point. We see areas in the green, and we'll see if anything changes on that as the models continue. But there's another low waiting in the wings up in the Gulf of Alaska. So a pattern change by the end of this weekend into early next week, but still overall excellent dispersion, all areas in the white as we go into early next week. Precipitation, this is Saturday morning through Monday morning. None for us, but there is that storm system producing precipitation light to moderate across Northern California, and we'll see how that transpires as that moisture moves further east into the Great Basin. Now, the longer range, 8 to 14D outlook, shows a cooler than normal signal. That's that storm track, with that storminess coming in early next week and probably continuing once every 3-4 days. We get a weak disturbance, and it'll keep the cooler than normal temperatures, especially across the western Great Basin. Models still calling for drier than normal. Again, very low confidence this time of year. The models have difficulty in our transitional spring and fall seasons, but best chances of precipitation might be up north. We'll see how this develops, but again, this would be bad news because these are extremely drought-stricken areas, and this will just continue worsening the situation as we go into early to mid-April. This concludes our briefing. Have a great day.